up, everyone, and welcome to the 24th episode of the Naus cEDH podcast. Tonight, we are talking all about tournament prep. My name is Cian, otherwise known as Varlas, and joining me, as always, is 03 Adam, otherwise known as Poppyphobia.
What's up, everybody?
And joining us today is rocketman, otherwise known as Kris.
What's going on, everyone?
And Xccepted, otherwise known as Alex.
How are you guys doing?
But before we get started, Adam, I think we have some triggers to resolve in our upkeep.
Yeah, thanks, Cian. So, as always, we're going to start off this episode by shouting out all of our high-tier patrons. Thank you to Doot, Usable Object, Senator Tom, Scorish, Unorthodox Bird, Jeff Bezos, Domino, Geos Justin, and our Chad Naus patron, Just Ice. If you'd like to become a patron, you can do so at patreon.com/ChadNaus. We've got a bunch of perks lined up for the year 2023 to support our patrons who help support us. Things like signed foil ad nauseum, signed playmats, episodes with you on them, cool shit like that. Other than that, in news that's going around, Punt City 2, the tickets are now live. You can go to eminence.events and you can sign up for Punt City 2. It's going to be in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, March 25th and 26th. The room blocks are on there. You can get your tickets, book your rooms, get everything set up on that website, and check on your Eminence profile and make sure you're not 03 dropping like your boy. Other than that, don't forget to smash that like button and hit subscribe. And for those of you listening on a podcast platform like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please make sure you leave us a review and a rating because it'll help us reach new audiences. And with that, we're going to move on to our main phase. So today we're going to be talking all about tournament prep. For the year 2023, we have tons of tournaments lined up for cEDH specifically. We have almost 2 events going on every month. And when I say events, I mean like over 150 plus people events. That's not including all the locals that are running cEDH events nowadays. Big stores like Rip and Ship up in New York, even in our area, places like the Mana Vault and, Warp Storm holding really, really big cEDH events. So because of this and how big the format is getting, we wanted to have an episode with 2 of our favorite grinders talking about tournament prep, just how we prepare for tournaments, what kind of things we do, how we look at the meta, and all these different types of evaluations going into events and how we get mentally prepared to play in a tournament. So that's why we brought on friends like Kris, rocketman, and Alex Xccepted, who have tons of history playing in these events, placing in these events, and putting up results. No better people to talk to than the grinders that hang out on Grindr themselves. So to start with, we're going to ask our first question. So we want to talk about how you guys specifically got into the tournament scene. People know how me and Cian kind of got into it. They've watched our journey throughout all of this. But as our guest, we kind of want to know where you got your start, where your footings in the format kind of came from, and how that's developed throughout time. So why don't we start with you, Kris, because your story's pretty unique, and then we'll go into Alex's story.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to dive into it. So basically, I've been playing Magic on and off for like 10 years. I started playing when I was like 12 in Boy Scouts, and I've basically been in love with the game ever since. Started on M13, and I've been playing on and off for a while. Picked up Hearthstone for a bit when I put it down, but I picked Magic back up right around the middle of the pandemic. I was sick with Hearthstone, and I wanted to start playing Magic again. And at the university I go to, there was a Hearthstone team, and there was also a Magic team, and I was already on the Hearthstone team, and I wanted to get affiliated with the Magic team. So long story short, I meet the guy who's head of the Magic team, someone by the name of Ben, and I hang out with Ben and start playing with him a lot more. And I was always aware of like Casual Commander to this day, and I've always had this deck. I had a Krenko Mob Boss casual deck that I've been like slowly upgrading over time, and I played a lot of Commander with him. And he was like, "Oh, you should like hear about this format called cEDH." And at first, I thought it was stupid. I thought competitive was the antithesis of Commander, but I started playing some decks, started watching some like YouTube channels, like Playing with Power and Play to Win were 2 of the big ones that really got me into the format. From there, I played a ton with Ben, and he invited me to play with his like play group, and I met a bunch more people through that. And the more and more cEDH I played, the more and more I realized how fun of a format it is, how skill intensive of a format it is, and honestly, it's very unique because a lot of the skills that are good in cEDH don't transfer, but a lot of the skills do transfer from 60 card Magic. So I've had a lot of fun learning the format over the months. Like 2022, I learned a ton of cEDH. When I the first started, I really didn't have any interest in tournaments. I didn't feel that confident in my skill level. Like I was trying to get better as a Magic player, but around like April, I decided that I really wanted to like try and improve my skill. So I was really playing a lot of Pauper, and I still played cEDH on the side. I went to a Pauper 1K. I scrubbed out, and I was like, "This sucks." I kind of like lost interest in competitive, but then I found out about Punt City because Ben introduced me to Mikey, and him and Zane put together Eminence Gaming with Mike Bonney and Punt City, and it was in my backyard, so I figured I might as well go, right? At the worst, like I get to meet all these people that I've played with online and enjoy myself, and at the best, I get to compete and maybe have a spot. So I brought Blue Farm, which was pretty much the only deck I played. I started out in Orvar, but I switched over to Blue Farm after I realized that deck kind of sucks. It's really fun, but it's just not that amazing. Anyways, so I get prepped for Punt City, and I'll go into more of that later. But I show up, and I ended up doing really well for my first event. I ended up making it all the way to top 4. Unfortunately, lost a really good game in finals. But after that, I was hooked. Like, I could not put down the format. I was like, I want to be here. Like, this is so much fun. So from there, I really went full throttle. A month or two later, I went to Oko. Scrubbed out at Oko, but I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot. And I'm a big fan of in-person tournaments. Not as much webcam, but I want to try and give webcam more of a spin in 2023. But overall, I see myself as someone who wants to attend at least like 5 to 6 cEDH events a year, whether they're webcam or in person. And I think they're a ton of fun. But yeah, I have a long history of Magic, but the last year or so has really been cEDH, especially the last 6 months.
Yeah, that's really cool, and I like your story because it's pretty different from the vast majority of like the established cEDH player base. Like even like Cian, I know, has been playing like cEDH since 2015, so like they're like entrenched in the format, right? And like been playing for as long as they've been playing Magic, like in theory a little bit. Whereas like you've really just dived into the format since like last year, and specifically like Punt City is really where you got your footing in it, and got really comfortable with the competitive side of it, right? And like tournament grinding. So it's really cool to kind of hear your perspectives and how you approach tournament grinding, especially coming from someone who's played a lot more 60 card comparative to 100 card singleton 4-player Magic. Alex, why don't you talk about how you got into the format and how you got into tournament cEDH specifically?
Oh, absolutely. I started off with Magic in about 2012 when Return to Ravnica came out. Played for a little bit, played through Theros, and then stopped for a while when Khans of Tarkir came out. And then Dominaria came out, and my friend was like, "Hey, do you want to play Commander?" And I'm sitting there like, I have no idea what Commander is. Is it Magic the Gathering? They're like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay, but screw it. I'll make a deck." So I built. I don't remember what I built, but I built just the worst deck ever. Played with them for a while. Played a while just playing casual with some friends, and didn't get into competitive until I think Tulane got released in Throne of Eldraine, and I was like, "Oh, this looks fun. It looks powerful." I was right about one of those things. It was kind of powerful at the time. It was not fun at all. It was one of the most boring decks I've ever played in my life. So quickly got out of that, even though I owned it in paper. Started playing Kraken Sakashima, which is a very fun deck. My friends hated playing against it, though, so I was like, I'm going to play something else. This is not my thing. So I just started playing a few different decks. Played a weird 2 Ikras deck, Ikra Sakashima, and it was not very good. Yeah, that's when I met Mikey. So I played that in my first tournament, which was Founders Cup, which was the end of 2021. And then in 2022, I switched over to Kenrith, and I started just playing in every tournament I could. I played in Playing with Power March, and I got top 16 there. That was my second tournament ever. Third tournament was Marchesa. Scrubbed out. Did terrible. And then I played in a bunch of other online events, like the one I won, which was PlayMax 3, and top 4'd the very recent Mox Masters. And yeah, I've just been in the format like completely this past year, playing in as many tournaments as I could. Met Rocket at Punt City. It's been a great time.
Yeah. Everybody has like their own kind of journey when it comes to cEDH and how they get into the format. And when you talk to like the grinders and the people that like play in every single event or playing as many events as they can make, they all have like really unique journeys and stories as well. Because like Alex, at this point, you're kind of known as like the Kenrith guy. So like when someone's got a question about Kenrith, it's like you go to Alex, right? Because Alex has been like the only person that's won a large tournament with Kenrith and the only person that's like consistently placing in multiple events with the same list. And then Kris, you come from this mindset of like, I'm going to play the best deck that's possible and bring it to this event, no matter what other people tell me, right? Like I'm going to play the best thing that's going to boost my odds of winning, and that's what I'm going to show up to an event with. And you did your first event and you top 4'd, and it was like it was a big talking point, I remember, after Punt City, because people were talking about how like, oh, this guy's only been playing cEDH for like 6 months and he top 4'd his first event by playing the best deck. From now on, people should just be playing the best deck. And that's kind of where like you see like that there was like a big meta shift and a mindset change in the community about like what you should be bringing to a tournament, right? And then what type of play styles and things you should adopt when going into them, which is kind of cool to see and see how these journeys evolve and things like that. Like Alex, I had no idea that you played, 2 Ikras or Kirk's Hakashima before you were in Kenrith.
I thought you only played Kenrith. That's it. I didn't know you played any other form of decks.
I thought you came out the womb with a Kenrith in your hand.
Yeah, Kenrith right here. I have a card for Wizards.
The Homelander Kenrith altar, was right next to him when he was born.
Yeah. So
I don't know where my Kenrith altars are.
I know that.
Uh-oh.
I know that for like Cian and I, when it came to tournament play, we were pretty well established into our local metas, right? Like we come from the breed of people that only played cEDH locally, and we never existed online. We never had, been a part of online tournaments or online events. And so like we would just bring our decks and jam at every local event that we could find. And like it got to a point where we were playing at like 3 stores a week at one point, just like grinding where we could. Yeah. And playing, multiple nights throughout the week. And then I kind of similar to you, Kris, I found out about like online play through Playing with Power and Play to Win. I think those were the first 2 Discords I ever joined. And when I joined Playing with Power, they were still doing leagues at the time. So you would get in, and then you would play in this league, and there would be like point systems throughout the league, and then people would win the league. And I remember I met like Gustav through the league and a bunch of other different players through the league. I remember getting fucking stomped on, dude. Like yeah, dude. I remember thinking I was good, and I was like bringing
some things never change, huh?
Listen, I've been through a long journey, okay, but yeah, and
a journey from the bottom to the bottom.
I'm like
a lateral journey.
Oh my gosh. The comments are just gonna be riddled with like, why all the Adam hate this episode? But,
this is normal. This is behind the scenes stuff that you typically don't.
Alex
see
and I are the 2 biggest Adam haters.
But after playing with Power Leagues, then I think the first event that I ever did was Chaos 2. And that was a huge stepping stone because it was something that I had never been a part of before, right? It was a free tournament with actual prize support. And like you show up to this event, and there's 100 people playing at 10 in the morning for prizes. And I was like, this is fucking insane. Like, what are all these random people doing? And it was such a weird experience. I remember after that event, I told Cian about it because I think I was like 1 game out of top 16. And I was like, dude, this is amazing. Like, you got to see this shit. Like, people are getting up at 10 in the morning. It's like a GP, but for cEDH. And, you know, I've never played in a fucking GP. I didn't know those things are like 10,000 people, you know, entering a day. So I was like, this is the cEDH GPs, dude. And, yeah, we got involved like through chaos, and then, you know, I ended up going to Punt City and meeting, you know, all of you guys there. Me and Cian went with Kris to Oko. Like, we just have kind of dove into this tournament scene like head first and getting entrenched into the online meta, which I think has taken our game up a ton. I mean, Cian top 16 at Oko, that was like a huge step up from like where we thought we were as a play group, for sure. So I don't know if you like express any different feelings about that, Cian, but like that's how I think our like tournament kind of grind
beginnings
kind of evolved, right?
Yeah, I feel like we've been getting more and more involved with the community, and more involved means more play, and tournaments are the only like way of expressing like how much or like what steps you've taken as a player to like get better and achieve like a goal.
It's kind of like
So,
the pull up or shut up mentality, right? Like, if you don't have
Exactly.
any results, you can't really speak, right?
Yeah.
So
Speaking of tournaments, I know that 2023, Adam mentioned, is a big year for tournaments here for cEDH tournaments. What do you guys do for preparations for a tournament? Like, is there like a specific thing that you do, like websites, go back and look at VODs, or Kris, will throw it to you first.
Awesome. Yeah, sure. So there's like a ton of different things that I like to do before a tournament to get prepared. So one thing I want to dive into is like something that was kind of new to me is like learning how 60 card players prepare for a tournament versus like how cEDH players prepare for a tournament. So what 60 card players try to do is like they really try to identify what the metagame is, right, on a given weekend. Like a buddy of mine, Viverus, was telling me about like Legacy, how, you know, before like the initiative came out, like Delver was the top deck at most weekends. So like if you were able to identify that Delver was going to be the majority of the deck, you would want to bring a deck that beats Delver.
Mm-hmm.
So transferring it over to cEDH, it's not as easy to transfer over, right? Because you're not just beating one person at the table. You have to beat 3 people at the table, number one. And number two, you run into a lot more jank at cEDH tournaments. People like to bring what they want, not necessarily the best deck, and they know that. A lot of people really like to have that brewer's advantage. And
What are you talking about? My mono green Yeva deck is the best. It's tier 0, right up there with Roxai. Change my mind.
Yeah, for sure, right?
Yeah,
But-
it's the same tier as the amount of wins you'll get.
Exactly. Well,
It's Adam's favorite deck.
Well, we're not going to get into that right now. But honestly, like what I like to do, number one, is just like practice games, right? Play with your play group. Playing in like an open server, like on like the Nexus or like cEDHU, sometimes Fire Game, playing with Power, Play to Win, all those open servers. Those are good to get like a feel for like the open decks you'll kind of see. I think it's good to try and figure out what every deck wants to do or does generally, just having like a general idea of where to interact is something good. But personally, I think the best way to prepare for a tournament is to just play a lot and be really confident in your deck, be really confident in your mulligans, be really confident in the roles you have to take in different pods. And most importantly, you got to know your outs to everything, and you have to be able to play your deck quickly when it comes to it, right? You shouldn't be having to stall in your deck. I think you have to figure out what deck you're the best at and the most comfortable on, and you also want to see where it is in the general metagame, right? Like if your best deck is like Sidisi Brood Tyrant, no slander to this deck, you know, it's one of the OGs, but unfortunately, like Sultai doesn't really match up like it used to anymore. If that's your best deck and you're like solid at Blue Farm, I would say run Blue Farm into a tournament, because while you may not be as good as you are as Sidisi, you're going to have a lot more luck with Blue Farm due to the fact that, or TNK, my bad, we're calling it TNK now. That's
Deluxe.
Another thing. Yeah, TNK, Deluxe. But you want to pick like a deck that wins games, right? Like Grixis Core has shown time and time again that it is the thing to be doing right now in the metagame, besides Winota. Grixis Core and Winota, I think, are the best things to bring to a tournament. I think that Blue Farm, or TNK, does the best into an open meta due to the fact that I like to call it like has like a bullshit barometer, right? like there's like tech cards that you have in a deck that can get you out of like really sticky situations, which Rockside like doesn't have necessarily, and people tend to really over focus Rockside, like especially Oko. I had multiple
True.
games where I was not the threat at the table at the current moment, and I was still getting treated like the threat. Like I could pull 5 mana and an ad nauseum out of my ass with 2 cards in hand and 1 land. So I think TNK is the best deck for that. For me to prepare, I just play a lot of games. I refine my list as well. I think you should really work on getting your list updated, and especially getting the mana base really good. Go to any like the deck servers. Like I really recommend cEDH for like improving your deck because a lot of the mentors there are really good and receptive. I'm a TNK mentor myself, but for any of the decks, people love to look at deck lists and help you out and like get you prepared for the event because it's difficult, right? And brewing is not something easy. It's very subjective and like stuff can change. And sometimes like if you don't play for 6 months and then you want to come and do an event, like your deck is unfortunately outdated for XYZ reason. And it's always good to just do like a touch up, like sit and talk with someone for an hour and just like take out old cards, put in new cards and like fix any other problems that you could have with the deck. But I just prepare by playing a lot. That's what I've been doing for the next Mox Masters. I've just been like jamming a lot of games with like my friends. Something that I also like to do as well is like telling my friends to like play top decks in the pod. Like we'll do 2 TNK, 2 Roxai, 2 Winota, 2 Roxai, a Winota, TNK, Najeela, Roxai, like 2 Najeela. So you can learn how to play against all the different top decks. Because that's the best way to learn how you beat them in a pod, right? It's really good to learn what your role is at a given seat or in a given pod, and the best way to do that is to just practice against all those different decks, and even practice against like the random bullshit, right? Like if your friend has like a fringe deck that he loves playing, like tell him to play it because like 1 or 2 games, just so like you can be prepared for like the BS factor. Something to know too with those decks is like, you know, they aren't as good as TK or Blue Farm, but like you can't just straight up ignore them or else you're going to lose the game to them and you're not going to expect it. So you should still respect them. Just like they're not going to place nearly as consistently as one of the like metagame killers.
That was like really in depth and like
Yeah.
a really good explanation there for like.
Yeah.
Sorry if I droned on a little bit.
No. I think
Oh,
that's
good.
good. There's like a few takeaways there that I'd like to like kind of discuss, and some things that I think would like our viewers specifically like have questions like this that they would like to get answered. So I think it's nice to touch on these. Like something that you talked about was like practicing with your friends and making your friends play like meta appropriate decks, right? So like you use some examples like having pod mixtures with decks like Winota, Najeela, Rogsai, T and K, and stuff like that. Do you feel like there's any like worth in playing against off meta decks because of like the experience of rogue decks at a tournament and things like that? Because like a lot of a lot of viewers in our Discord and our channels that like they're big fans of rogue decks and really enjoy playing those. And even if they're not like super rogue decks, things that you don't always see like at the table super often. So like Minsk and Boo, different types of like Naya piles, Tox roll, decks like that. Those are like decks that we see a lot of people brewing and experimenting with in our circles. So do you think it's like fair to play against those decks that still hold a candle to the, you know, to the top decks at the table, even though they're not considered you know, tier 0? Or do you really recommend just like playing with, you know, just the best of the best and trying to improve your game that way?
So I think that's varied, right? So I think like those are the top 4 decks like I named, but just because they're the top 4, there's decks below them that are still very good decks that you should learn how to play against. Like your Kenriths, your TNT, Krark Sakashima, Malcolm/X. All those decks, you definitely need to learn how to play against those as well. I would recommend testing against those. And the reason I say test against the top 4 is because we don't have all the time in the world. So the time that you do have, you should be spending it testing against those. And if you end up feeling like you're very confident in those matchups, then you can move on to the next tier. Of those decks, I think number 1, you should need to learn how they work, especially like Naya creature piles or Abzan creature piles, like, or any Hulk deck. You need to learn how they learn so you can learn when to interact if you can interact. It's just good to know how your opponents win the game. It's a really good conversational piece because a lot of times in tournaments, you'll run into a player who's like, oh, I don't really know how this deck works. And you can kind of speak up and be like, oh, well, you should interact XYZ. And it's usually a good way to get them to burn their interaction on your opponent's board and not use it on your board, which helps you win the game, which is the whole point of cEDH, right? Alex, what are your opinions on that? I'll hand it over to you.
On specifically playing against rogue decks?
Yeah.
So I like practicing it in both an open meta, so like the playing with power servers like that you mentioned earlier, and in my close-knit group. The playing with power meta, I'll get like just random decks. Like I'll play against a Dawnwaker here, I'll play against a Curious Control here, and I'll play for 6 hours because those games will last that long. And sometimes on the server with my friends, I'll play against 3 Rog size, and I can play 6 games in that same amount of time.
That's right.
So you'll begin to learn how these decks first work and how they win, and it is extremely valuable to find out how they win so you can actually beat them. You don't just have to know how they win, you need to know how to beat them, and that's extremely important in these tournaments.
Where to interact.
Where to interact is extremely important, especially with Hulk, like you mentioned, because that is it's the Rube Goldberg machine of decks. Like, you'll look at it and you'll be like, he activated Sleeper. I don't understand how that card works. Can you please explain that to me? Because none of the cards make sense without every other card included. Or like an Orvar deck, they're playing Whims of Volrath and everyone's confused.
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, I wanted to ask that because, like, I know that you guys differ in opinions from that because, Alex, like, before events, I will be like, like, where's Alex at today? Like, what's he up to? And everybody will just be like, oh, he's jamming and playing with power today. Or I'll ask you, I'll be like, what are you doing? And you're like, oh, I'm in playing with power today. And you're just jamming games for hours. I'm like, man, this guy is really, really working at it. But that's something that you do, is you like to compete in an open meta or in a space where not everybody's playing the same thing, right? And so it's cool to see how that translates to your game, because you are a player that at the table, if I'm sitting and I see, I don't know, what's that clue deck that we made fun of?
Tivit?
No, Lannis.
Lannis.
like if Lannis was
Tivit's
at
not
the
that
table.
clue deck, I was about to say.
No. And like Lannis was at the table, and I was like, I don't know how this deck tries to win or whatever. Like, there's a good chance that Alex would be like, oh yeah, it wins like this, right? And so that's a skill that's unique to knowing how your opponents play. And you touched on this, Kris, knowing how your opponents play and what they play, because when it comes time to play against that in an event, you want to have as much knowledge beforehand as possible. You don't get to see deck lists the day of an event, right? But if you get to memorize and know that at least I know for sure that this is what this deck should be running and should be playing, I can plan my game and my strategy around that throughout the game. And it's like the reason why, like, when you play with like even the best decks, right? Like if you play against a Winota deck, right, at the table, you know 2 things, right? The first thing is you cannot let Winota develop. So you can't let Winota get on the field, and you can't let them start hitting flips, because as soon as they do, they overrun the board. Or the other thing that you know is you're going to say, oh, I know Winota is going to develop, so in order to counteract that, I need to, mulligan for a dress down or another way to implement my game plan beyond this specific player. And the same thing goes for like Blue Farm or other decks, where you're like, okay, I have to have removal for the Nagila, or I have to be prepared for the Naus, and I have to have interaction, and you plan your strategy around what you know. And if you don't know what's going on at the table, you can get fucked, and then you'll lose the game because of that. And that's like the worst feeling, when you lose the game when you know you could have prevented it if you had done something or made a different decision. So then on the topic of tournament prep and staying on it, Alex, besides just playing in open metas, what other ways do you specifically prep for tournaments?
So I like to look at the deck lists on the database, just generally just look at them, understand what is out there, because there's new decks out there every day that I wouldn't expect to see ever, like Vohar Scepter. I needed to know that that was just a Dimir Scepter deck, and that's all I needed to look at. and another thing I do is if it's something like Marchesa where they had open, like you could see everyone else's signups. Yeah, I just look at all the decks. I write all of them down, see what the meta is, because hey, if you're gonna let me see it, I'm gonna pay attention. I'll look at the players who signed up because I often know who the players are, and I can judge what they're playing by who they are. Like if Greg signed up, I know he's playing Curious Control. That's it. If Adam 2 months ago signed up, he's playing Sacred Guide.
Sacred Entry Fee Donator, yeah.
Sacred Entry Fee Donator, yeah, that deck. So that's something I often do. Like more closer to the event, I will like day of or day before, I just like get good sleep, eat well, drink a lot of water because I don't want to be dehydrated and my brain not work.
And Red Bull.
Don't talk to me like that. Yeah, of course. I drink a lot of caffeine because I'm a fiend for caffeine. Yeah, definitely bring it into the event in a water bottle that it's definitely water. Yep. Did that at Marchesa. They didn't allow outside food or drink. Get snacks at the event just so you're high energy, so you're not like just passing out round 4. Just a bunch of little things like that. And talking to your opponents, like being friendly with them so they lower their guard a little bit is very important as well. If you're just like hackles up, you're just like, I'm just going to play and I'm going to win. You might just lose games because they're going to look at you and be like, I don't like that guy. I want him to lose.
Playing to win. I don't like that.
Well, you can play to win, but you can be a nice guy. There's a difference.
I've heard that if you're nice enough, that you'll win an event one day.
Yeah, I don't know where that belief comes from, but yeah.
I've seen it on Twitter. Maybe a few people specifically.
I forgot. Getting retweets is the same as getting a like cEDH tournament win. I completely forgot about that.
I don't get a lot of retweets, but I've won a tournament. What does that mean?
It means you're a good player.
No, it means there was a gap in the matrix, and you just happened to slip through that time.
Just that
break in the system.
So when we had Koval on after his win at Oktoberfest, something that we touched on with him is like rituals during the event, right? Like we talked with him about how like he'll like go off in a corner and hide and like play
Marvel
Crush.
Snap
or yeah, just like in between rounds to like disassociate from like Magic in general. And so I was curious for you guys, if there are any rituals that you two implement. Like, is there anything that you do at an event that you're like, I didn't think of it as a ritual, but now that I think of it, like, yeah, I always do this. Or like, even when you're playing in like online events, if there's anything that you do, or is it pretty much you just go with the flow and just like jam and you kind of just get in that zone?
Well, I can start. I don't have that many. Like Alex said, like I make sure to get like a good night's sleep, especially for day one. Have like caffeine and have food, breakfast. Like have food and meat, but like that's not really a ritual. That's just like good tournament practice. I always end up re-sleeving before a tournament. Like even if I do it 2 days before, the day before or day like that morning, I'm gonna end up re-sleeving. Like the cursed re-sleeve. It just kind of happens. They call me re-sleeves McGee. Like, if I'm about to do a tournament, it doesn't matter last time I sleeved. I'm re-sleeving the day before. So that's kind of my ritual. I get all the bad juju out of the sleeves, get all the bad RNG out of the sleeves. And then I put on new sleeves. Make my ad nauseum like 3 pounds so I know where it is, obviously. Just kidding. I don't do that. But re-sleeving before every tournament is probably like my best ritual. And then like in between rounds, I always like to like go up to my friends and see how they're doing. Like, I've always really enjoyed that. And for like webcam stuff, like hopping in a VC with all your friends, I just like talking to people in between rounds because like that's kind of how I decompress at an event because there's like so many people. You get to meet so many new faces and like see people that you've like seen on the internet and stuff. And it's like really cool. So I just like to talk to people and decompress. That's kind of how I do my sort of rituals in between rounds at events. How about you, Alex?
In between rounds, you should know this. I also am just walking around talking to my best of friends. That's just how I do things. If it's online tournament, I'll just hop in a voice chat with 15 people and just laugh about random stuff or complain and get out all of my anger from the previous round. It's just decompressing, detilting is very important. If you get tilted, like you often do, Rocket, you need to take it out of your system.
Yeah. No molding allowed at a tournament, all right?
No
molding allowed.
No molding.
That's funny that you said that you re-sleeve before every tournament. Before I went to Oko, I literally grabbed my oldest sleeves that I own and I slapped them on. Like, literally the oldest sleeves. Like, they were dirty. I had to go and clean every single card. But, you know, they're so packed with good luck. Or they were packed with good luck. That grammar's hard. But, but yeah.
Yeah, do you guys don't have, like the same
week
pair?
before.
Week
before?
before?
Yeah.
Like a week
See,
before.
I was curious if you guys had like your lucky underwear that you wear, and you wear like one sock backwards. You know, I don't know if you guys have like
What the fuck?
like that's like sports rituals, dude. Like sports players, they get all like real like conspiracy and shit. They'll be like, "Yeah, I fucking never wash my helmet because if I wash my gear, I won't play as good anymore." It's like I wonder CDH players are the same way. They're like, I wear the same outfit to every CDH event or something. You know, I don't know.
I mean, I drank coffee for the one I won and the one I top forward, so maybe I should drink coffee instead of Red Bull.
Maybe
But
you should just drink coffee more.
always.
Before
I should be
tournaments.
drinking coffee every day, but
There you go.
So I'm trying to think for like us. I don't know if there's like anything like that I do specifically like for tournament prep. Like I'll tell you what I think I'm good at when it comes to tournaments.
Oh boy, here we go again.
Hurry up. I think I'm good at hyping up other people to do well in their events. I feel like I feel like I'm a good hype man.
Yeah.
I'm really good at like
I
getting
can see
someone
that.
getting people like out of like the dump if they feel like they're gonna fail or they're not like gonna make it, and like being like, hey, you know, you're not out of it yet. Get another chance. I think like if people want to hire me, I'll come up with a rate and I'll come to an event near you. And if you're doing bad, I'll motivate you to do better. Because
You're the CDH hype man. You're the CDH hype man.
But like that's like the only thing that because like I spend a lot of time at like the in-person events I go to where I just like start talking to my friends and asking like, how'd your games go? What did you do? Blah 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 blah. And I end up always like finding someone that's just like down in the dumps and like not really feeling it. And like we end up having to have a pep talk about like, hey, it's just a fucking game. Like, let's, you know, get our heads back into it and get back out there, champ. And I slap him on the butt and we go, you know, go to the next game. No, I'm just, but,
so there's a rate.
No, you do that. You do that.
I mean, everyone, if it's
what's
someone I
your
know really well. But other than that, like that's because like for when it comes to actual tournaments, like I don't sleep well the night before. I'm usually up till like 3 a.m. partying or like, you know, getting messed up with my friends. And then like the day of the event, I like takes me till round 3 to finally wake up. And then, you know, it's like, there's like, I feel like I'm the worst example of like a proper tournament grinder.
And your results show that.
I've been only one game out of top 16 for like 3 events. And I only 0-3 dropped 1 event. And that was
2 events. 2 events.
No, 0-3-2 is not 0-3 drop.
0-3-2 is 0-3 drop.
0-3-2 drop is 0-3 drop.
Just because you slow played twice doesn't make it not an 0-3
No.
drop.
We're very high on the slow play enforcement here on Sad Nows, okay? What about you, Cian? Do you feel like there's something like specific that you do for like tournament prep?
You tell us yours instead of Adam.
I got Adam and Kevin hype me up, at least at Oko. Something during the event, every round I have to go outside and smoke because I'm a nicotine addict, so I got to do that. That's mandatory.
That's a good ritual. Yeah, that's a good
ritual.
Really good for your health. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Only health conscientious things here. Good sleep before is always good. Not like day 2, or I don't think I got good sleep day 2.
I know some rituals that you have at our like local tournaments. You know, like you always got your water
Hey, we don't
bottles
talk
set
about
on
the
your-
rituals about local tournaments. Don't worry about the water bottle filled with Mountain Dew and vodka. Okay, that's gamer juice. But yeah, good sleep.
And you're right. That is gamer juice.
It's literally gamer juice, dude. Like people shit on Mountain Dew and vodka, but it's actually pretty good. Anyway,
My gamer juice is just like 2 liters of Red Bull.
Yeah, I think there is something that
Wisconsin
you do
thing.
you do that you forgot to mention, Kian, is like usually in between
Moxfield.
rounds. No, usually in between rounds and stuff, I see you always staring at the flavor text of all the cards that you're playing with, and like it's odd to me sometimes, and I'm always wondering why. Do you want to explain why you're always staring at the flavor text of your
Well,
cards?
listen, let me tell you something about the best segment of our show here, the flavor text of the week. Listen, for those who don't know, flavor text of the week is where I, Kian, try to stump the cast on the show, and you guys are at home with a challenging flavor text. So, to start off with, I'm going to start with the people on the show. You guys ready for it? Simone's brilliance drew attention from many, including the sinister mages known as the Urker. Orc? I don't know how to say that word, but there it is. Do you guys want me to read it again?
Look at fucking Chris's face, dude.
I don't read my flavor text, dude. I'm not even
you
gonna
say it
lie.
again?
All right. Simone's brilliance drew attention from many, including the sinister mages known as the Auric.
Do you have like a hint?
Guess
Okay.
first, so then I'll give you a hint. Don't you know how this works here, dude? Come on.
It's from the college set.
Strixhaven?
Yes, from Strixhaven, because the Auric is from Strixhaven.
Ooh,
Someone knows
okay.
about lore. Holy moly! Whoa.
Oh shit, dude! Is this guy?
Gee.
What is it called when you're into lore and magic? It's,
Vorthos.
oh, I was gonna say a pot host, but that's a plant. So Strixhaven, what are playable Strixhaven cards? Oh,
Calling ritual.
yeah, that's the one.
Is it?
Is that your guess?
EI is the other one, but I'm gonna go with calling ritual. What are you thinking, Alex?
I probably should read that card. It's on my desk.
What's the Auric in Strixhaven? Is it like a guild?
The bad guys.
Is
It's
it a-
the bad guys.
Yeah, I know, but is it like a guild color? Is like the Auric a specific
No.
guild color? No.
No, they're just evil.
They're bad guy.
Culling
you
the
need to
Weak
catch up on
sounds
your
like
lore, dude.
Culling the Weak sounds like an evil thing.
Culling the Weak
let's
is
guess
not
that
the-
card.
it's not-
Calling
hard.
ritual. Calling the weak is the one that you sack Rog to. You're a little
It's the
idiot.
They're the
Yeah,
same thing. Same
Exodus.
things.
Expressive iteration.
It is not
First guess?
EI. Not
Okay.
EI.
And did we determine it's not Culling Ritual?
Yeah, it's not calling ritual.
Is it in Strixhaven? Is it a Strixhaven card?
It is a Strixhaven card.
Wow, it's like I knew that.
Ink. What's the ink card? That makes inklings.
Does the C play in any formats?
Yes, this is a CDH playable card.
Okay, that's
Is it the counterspell that looks at someone's hand?
No,
Resculpt.
Okay.
Is it Resculpt?
it is not Resculpt.
That's in Strixhaven, right?
Mhm.
It's playable in CDH. It's very
Is it a
medium,
Crux
but it's
Sakashima
playable.
card?
yes.
Okay, see, I'm trying to think of weird Strixhaven cards.
Is it the dude that makes treasures?
Is it the bounce spell?
the bounce?
It's not the bounce spell.
No, is there? There's it's not the guy that makes treasures because that's.
Is
not
it
from,
Archmage Emeritus?
It is not Archmage. It is a spell.
Uh,
it's a spell.
well,
There's got to be a spell that like. All right, it's playable in Crux Sakashima. Is it playable in Orvar?
Yes, super playable in Orvar.
Oh, so it targets something. So,
No.
well, then why? How would it be playable in Orvar?
It costs 3 mana. It's a
solve
spell.
the equation.
There you go. Chris got it.
Yes.
I narrowed it down to a set for you guys.
That was
Yeah,
did. You-
yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
know
you
I
got it
completely
right off
forgot
the
about
gate.
that card, dude.
Yeah, it's okay. It's an okay card.
It's all right. Yeah.
Solve the equation.
All right,
It used to
now
be used
for-
as a-
For the audience's flavor text, this one's super easy. I expect Scorish and Maria and all the other peeps to get this in 0.25 seconds because Scryfall is fast. Anyways, I pray that I am never considered useless or old. Saram the Hedgemon. Okay.
Shroom?
Bam. Sharoom. Yeah. I don't know how to say words. They're hard. But yeah, that's your flavor text. I will say it again. I pray that I am never considered useless or old. Sharoom the Hedgemon. So, moving on to the next question for you guys here. So we know that Silicon Dynasty is right around the corner, as well as a plethora of other cEDH tournaments coming up in 2023. What do you guys think that the meta will be like at Silicon in these tournaments, and what will the meta be like going forward? Alex, I'll throw it to you first.
I think the meta will be very similar to what we've seen in recent online tournaments. So Blue Farm will be the most popular deck. That is the coldest take in the world. We're going to see a lot of
Frigid.
Yeah, it's a frigid take. We're going to see a lot of Roger Tavesh turbo stacks because that's like the
Roger.
California...
Don't say Roger on my podcast. It's Rog. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Rog is Pog. Rog Tavesh. Turbo stacks because that's the meta in California. We're going to see a Jessica Timna build that no one should play.
Crack Pipe Brewing.
Yeah, Crack Pipe, Jessica Timna. It has a name, but I don't think it deserves one. There's going to be some Rog Silas because it's a great deck. There's going to be a lot of Winota because people enjoy that deck. And it's amazing. Not just that they enjoy it. And there's going to be a million TNT decks because there's a million ways to build TNT decks.
True.
And there's 50% of the meta for you right there. Congratulations. You now learned how cEDH works.
Thanks, Professor Alex. I appreciate your lesson today.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty much the meta, though.
Beautiful.
Gotcha. Chris, what do you think? What you concur with Alex here, or you think there's going to be like...
I do on a lot of stuff, so I think TNK is number one right now. I think TNK is the deck to beat. And luckily, the deck that beats TNK already exists. It's called Roxai. I think you're going to see a good amount of Roxai. A lot of people really, really like the deck. I think TNK and Roxai are 1 and 2, 2 and 1. I think Najila Breach is a really, really good deck too. People are starting to adopt that. That hasn't been like as widely adapted, but I think the more and more people play it, the more and more you'll see it. Winota's a very good deck. I think those are your top 4 decks right now. And I think those, especially Winota, TNK, and Roxai, those are going to be the most popular decks. Besides that, like Alex said, Rocktavesh Turbo Stacks. People love that deck in Cali. That's SoCal meta as you get. Super Stacks, turn 1 3-ball. That's another deck that you got to learn how to play against. You got to keep hands that aren't as explosive if you're like going 3rd or 4th seat and a deck like that is ahead of you, as otherwise they're going to play a turn 1 3-ball or whatever, and they're going to punish you. You're going to be like, damn, I suck at Magic. So be prepared for that deck. Alex said there's like this Mad Farm deck called the Chapel that you're going to see a lot of. It's a little different than like the DDB list for Tibida Jessica. It's interesting. That's
bad.
What I'll say. I don't want to say that word bad, right?
I do.
I think
it's kind of bad.
Besides that, you have like the usual suspects, right? Malcolm X, whether it's Malcolm Vile, Malcolm Tana. People like to play other Malcolm Esper. I like Esper Malcolm. Besides that, I don't think any of the other Malcolms are viable. You got like your poly decks. Krark Sakashima is a deck that there's gonna be dedicated pilots to. It's a solid deck. You can't ever sleep on Krark Sakashima.
Mm-hmm.
And then TNT, like Alex said, people love TNT. I think TNT is definitely losing a lot of popularity. It's kind of slow. Green's probably the worst color in cEDH right now, and red is really, really good. You'll lose explosiveness with like Dockside, and Timna's kind of a slow draw engine. The meta's really speeding up. Like TNK falls back on Timna versus like TNT like really uses Timna a lot. Like dorks are dropping off in viability, so TNT's falling, but you're still going to see a lot of TNT. It's a good mid-range deck. It plays well in the stacks, and you're going to see random ass stacks decks. You're going to see that at every event. That'll never go away. People love to play Yasharn, like white Winconless stacks, like Naya stacks, Abzan stacks, Rocktavesh Poly stacks. People love their stacks decks. The viability of stacks decks is another thing to dispute, but you just got to be prepared for them. Don't let them mind control you. If a guy playing mono white tries to tell you how to play your deck, don't listen to him, but he's going to play mono white and he's going to top 16, maybe top 4, and that's just how it is. Just don't listen to him. Because he's going to mind control you. Stacks players want to mind control you, but you're going to see stacks decks stacks are a recipe for tie, but a couple stack decks always make it into the top 16. Besides that, watch out for your random brews. A really good pilot can bring a brew pretty far, right? Like this, while we're talking about the meta, cEDH is largely, you could get away with open bullshit all the time. If you're a good Magic player, you're going to do well. But be prepared for everything. That's what I think the meta is going to be. But most TNK, Roxai, Najeela, Winota, and if it's a Cali event, watch out for Rock Tavesh and the Chapel.
There's a few things that
Kenrith is good too, but Alex is the only one that really plays Kenrith anymore. But it's a good deck, and don't sleep on Kenrith. He'll kick your ass on Kenrith.
I saw there's some
You're speaking
spice.
from a bit of.
Alex beat my ass round 1 at Punt City on Kenrith, so I have personal experience for that.
Yeah, you see like wacky brews all the time, right? Like who knows what you'll see. You might see Cody on Hermit Druid. Who knows what's out there? There's just like all types of decks that people aren't prepared for. But something that I want to touch on that you kind of like discussed, because I can't just let you do it and get away with it, right? The TNT slander. Recently, one of our friends has been working on like a statistics page and like a statistics site talking about like deck performances and things like that, and like I do agree with the idea that like TNT seems to be like falling off, but even in the year 2022, it still has the second most placements out of any deck for top 16s. It's Blue Farm is first and TNT is second, with just like the most consistent.
What's the first and second most popular decks? Is it TNK and then TNT? Because that just sounds like how math works.
Yeah, but that still doesn't. I mean, still, man.
What about like translation rate?
I don't speak another language, so I can't tell you about translation.
Oh yeah. Well, so I think the thing with TNT is at the start of the year, people kind of said it was the best deck or one of the best decks, but I think, especially since Punt City, a lot of opinions have kind of fallen on TNT. So I think it's like kind of a generalization to look at all of 2022
Well,
versus
not
like
though,
the
right?
last.
So like Oktoberfest, right? You had in the final pod, you had Dawnwaker Thrasios, Timna Thrasios, you had Timna Krom,
TNK.
and then Timna Krom.
I thought it was Blood Pod.
No, it was
Timna Thrasios.
Dawnwaker,
Timna Thrasios.
TNK.
Yeah, which I think is still like a very real representation of what the meta is. Like if you want to look at like a top 4 snapshot and be like, this is what 2022 was, I think that's a pretty good example. Is like Oktoberfest final pod was, Dawnwaker, TNT, and 2 TNKs. Like the only thing that was missing from that pile was Rogsai, right? For like you want to talk about like the most popular decks in the format right now. So like
So like my like rebuttal to that, right, is like you were talking about this upcoming year, not this past year. Right, I think that's why I said I think you're going to see TNT fall off a little bit. Like you still have your dedicated TNT pilots, like Sick Robot, who's going to bring TNT, and it's just a very good player, and will like top 4 events. But I think my point is you're going to see less TNT than you have in the past. I think people are moving on to other
I think
archetypes.
the people that like value mid range and want to push towards a mid range deck are going to start to transition towards like Dawnwaker, which has the explosiveness of red and dockside combos, which is like really easy to like draw your deck. Alex, you know how easy dockside combos are in cEDH. They're really so yeah.
It's my favorite thing to do.
It's going to be interesting to see like where the meta develops, because like something that like I have always been a believer in is like overcorrections, right? So like you see like shifts in the meta that happen, then they're big swings, because when people see something and they see something succeed or they see something fail, the meta shifts drastically in that direction, right? So like a deck that like a perfect example of this would be like Winota, right? Like Winota, when it first got made, was like kind of like surprising tournaments and like taking things down like really, really efficiently, and won like a few events when it was like first kind of came on the scene being a deck. Then throughout 2022, it was one of the most popular decks, like #1 submitted decks for multiple tournaments in a row, simply because like the meta was adapting and people were starting to pick up the deck more than ever, right? And so that's when you see an event like Punt City where there's 12 Winota decks at one event, and you're just like, what the hell? And even at Oktoberfest, there was like, out of 160 people, if there's 15 people on Winota, that's still a large number, because like with the amount of decks and options out there, I mean, there's over 100 decks on the database, right? Like you wouldn't think the field would be as saturated. So I think that when you see now like the success of like Blue Farm and like Rogsai and Turbo strategies, you're going to see that big shift where you're going to see tons of people switching to those decks, and it's going to be like an overcorrection where now you're going to go to an event and like upwards of 20% of the field is on Blue Farm, right? Which is like a very real thing that could happen. And then I think you're going to see a shift back, and it's just going to kind of keep waning back and forth. So it's going to be interesting to see like where that meta evolves this year, but I think it's leading in that turbo direction as mid-range is kind of like winning less and less events as it did in like the year 2021 when most events were online or on Trice, right? Now you're going to see an overcorrection to a lot of like turbo ad nauseum strategies and things like that. And then,
people have figured out that the Grixis shell is really good.
Yeah. Well, and you're seeing
As it
less
turns
rogue
out.
decks. You're seeing less rogue decks win, right? Remember at Marchesa when Magda won, how big of a
Yeah.
deal that was? And everybody's like, "Oh my fucking god, Magda won!" And like you still
Not gonna
see,
lie,
like,
that deck sucks. I played it. It's not good.
but that was like a snapshot of the time, right? Because when you think about that, like Magda in the top 4, OG Heliod in the top 4, right? Like that was the point where like, yes, remember when Yisan took down like a qualifier in 2 tournaments and like in like a couple months apart from each other? Like that was the moment where like rogue decks were taking over, and then the meta like completely changed, and then by the end of the year it was just the best decks were winning events. So I think that like CDH, I always like joke around that CDH, like 3 months is a year in CDH time, and like every 3 months something drastic changes that makes it feel like that was years ago, but in reality it was only 90 days. So that's how like I'm kind of like really excited to see like where 2023 is headed. I don't know if you guys like agree with that or think similarly or have a completely different opinion, but
Do you want us to like talk about it?
Yeah,
Because sure. So I think Alex would probably agree with me. So I think one of the things that really made mid-range good was mid-range is really good at navigating through the Swiss bullshit, especially the Swiss stacks decks, right? Because mid-range decks are like, okay, cool, you can play your early stacks pieces. I'm going to get my Thrasios in play. I'm going to get my Tymna in play. And I'm going to draw 3 to 4 cards a turn, and I'm going to outvalue you. Here's the Thoracle Consult, I win. Or like, here's a Hermit Druid line, or here's Divining Witch, whatever it may be. Mid-range is really good at playing through stuff like Rule of Law and Collector Oof. But a lot of these stacks players, there's really good stacks players who do have results, but stacks is really, really difficult to play. And a lot of the stacks just aren't very good. And not only that, but cEDH players in general are getting better in Magic as time goes on. So you're seeing less and less stacks in Swiss, and you're seeing Turbo become more and more Turbo. There's always Turbo, but Turbo beats mid-range, and without stacks to stop the Turbo decks, mid-range just loses to the Turbo decks. Like they're not able to get as much card advantage as quickly, and that's what's leading to like decks like TNK really taking over. And what's so great about TNK is like, it's not the ideal mid-range deck, but it can play the mid-range game fine. And even Rogsai has a decent mid-range game. People will have you believe that deck folds to a single rule law effect or whatever, but like it doesn't. Like Mystic Remora is a stupid Magic card, and as long as you have a Mystic Remora out, you're going to be able to power through. And basically, it's insane. Like, so mid-range is falling off, and it's still a very good strategy, and there's still plenty of good mid-range pilots, but the like random people coming into tournaments or like random people picking up cEDH are less likely to pick up mid-range, as much and more likely to pick up Turbo due to the recent tournament results, and there's less like random stacks. Do you agree with that, Alex? Or
I would mostly agree with that. I would say there are there's like the TNT kind of decks that are falling off. I would say that because there's explosive mid-range decks like the Blue Farms, the Kenriths, and the Dawnwakers of the world that will just, in an instant, just win the game. Like, playing against any of the faster decks, even then. Like, I have won multiple games on turn 2 because I said, oh, I have a Culling Ritual in hand. I win. And, yeah, it against all the fast decks, or the Dawnwaker deck will just be like, oh, I dockside, I play other half of combo, I win. That's it.
Yep.
And they can do that as early as turn 2 or turn 1 if they're in 4th position. It's just kind of the shit that happens. I think decks without red are falling off.
People have taken the
I
breach
agree.
pill.
Yeah.
That's what it is. The breach
it
pill.
is.
I think it's the dockside pill as well.
Exactly. You get both. You get
Yeah.
breach and dockside.
Yeah, I
Like,
know,
you
right?
get get the best ritual and you get the best win con. Like
I think that like we've been like proponents of the idea that, or at least on our podcast, that like at this point I would consider breach the best card in cEDH, just like hands down. Like if you play red, you play around breach. You build your deck around that. And if you're not playing breach in your red deck, you're just a worse deck. Even like decks that don't need it, like Krark Sakashima, just play Underworld Breach now because it's just the value
why
of it
not?
the value is just so strong. And when you can cash it for free and bounce it back to your hand after using Breach and fucking get, your free spell a million times, like, dude, have you ever seen like fucking 3 Krarks and a Mind Break Trap, dude? I don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to do against that.
scoop.
Nothing. You're not supposed to play.
Yeah.
It's called Kevin doesn't win the game.
Kevin tried to do Get Rog loops
Loops
with 4 Krarks and a Mind Break Trap in play. I'm like, dude, you gotta stop, man. It's not gonna work. That crop
And he
rot's
still
not
won.
resolving. but yeah, I think that's like it's an interesting way to view like how like it's kind of like viewing cEDH from like an outside lens, right? And really like diving into the nuances of the format when you think about stuff like that, because as a tournament player and as a grinder, sometimes you have to try to predict the meta or play around it, right? Like we all make card choices in our deck around specific meta pieces. If stacks never existed, we would never play Dress Down and Rogsai. You know what I mean? Like there's just no point in playing it besides like maybe stifling an ETB trigger. But other than that, like if it wasn't
Or
for-
Winota. I mean, or like Winota or like Nagila.
Sure, but I mean, like, the reason why Dress Down is good in those decks is because it's a proactive card as much as it's a reactive card, right? It helps progress your game plan and winning the game. If stacks never existed, we would never play that card because it's not proactive enough for us. So like these are meta concessions that you have to make in order to win more. And there are scenarios where win more cards are better. And so like these are like the evaluations you have to make. And so like, do you guys ever go into events like going through your deck lists and trying to change cards or things like ahead of the event, like saying like, oh man, I might see more Winota than I expect. Maybe it's time I start playing Hydro Blast or, shit like that. Do you guys ever think about that?
Beb.
Generally, yeah. Like, so like in a given list, there's like 3 to 5 flex slots. A lot. I think there's not any in Roxai, but in TNK, there's definitely quite a few flex slots, like 3 to 5, like I said. And like a perfect example of that is the Fiery Covenant versus Toxic Deluge.
Toxic Deluge, yeah.
If I expect a lot of Winota, I'm gonna put Toxic Deluge in my deck because it destroys Winota. It's a Winota killer. And cards like Hydroblast, I think, are just so good that they're worth running in TNK just because they blow up Dockside, blow up Breach, blow up Winota. But yeah, stuff like that is definitely a meta call. What about you, Alex?
I would say that before Punt City, I was like, yeah, I need to do these specific things to my deck. I made mistakes doing that, but I definitely made some meta calls based on some things I'd been hearing. I kept a few of them, like the City of Traders and the Grim Tutor, which I just got rid of, but that's beside the point.
Man, remember that phase? The Grim Tutor phase?
I do remember that phase. I remember getting a lot of angry messages for cutting PETA for Grim Tutor.
It's still not bad. It's still not a bad decision.
It's not bad. I just don't think
cards.
it's...
There's
better cards.
One of 110 that are playable in my deck. And I
like that PETA got axed for it, right? Because I think PETA at this point is considered just unplayable. Like it's a good card, but it's just so much.
In TNK, yeah, not in general. Like Crick obviously still wants it.
Yeah, sure. But I think we're talking about, we're generalizing here with like TNK and Rogsire, these ad naus decks that might want it. Like I'm assuming you're not on PETA anymore in Kenrith, right? Or were you ever on it?
I was on it for about a week.
Yeah, it's just like like it's not worth the trade off, right? And even like strategies that are being utilized now, that like, why would I pay a PETA if I can just play a Citadel, right? Or things like that. Like
Or
people are,
Necro.
yeah, like mindsets are definitely changing or developing. So it's unique to see that stuff. But yeah, the Grim Tutor phase was fucking funny. I remember like we covered it on the podcast. We're like, this is the most innovative thing ever, and then like 2 weeks later, everybody's off of it already. I'm like, all right,
I just
but it's 7 mana win the game. It's 7 mana win the game. You don't understand.
I just got off of Grim Tutor like a week and a half ago.
yeah.
So that phase just ended for me.
I think I'm
ended right-
still on it in TNK. I may have cut it. I don't remember.
It
Yeah,
ended
I
right
cut
after
it.
I bought the full art foil. That's when it ended. As soon as I paid
Yeah,
$25.
Well, yeah,
for
that was the
card.
plan, right? We were just trying to get money. I had a bunch of Grim Tutors I was trying to unload.
Trying to sell. I remember Adam telling me this tech for like swapping Grim Tutor out for PETA. Like I was already on the fence for PETA, and then I switched to Grim Tutor, and then I cut Grim Tutor in like 2 weeks. It
was
felt
on the
too
way
slow
home
and just
from Richmond,
unplayable.
right? It was when we were driving home from Richmond. I was like preaching about Grim
Yeah.
Tutor for like hour. You and Bryce were forced to listen to me talk about it for hours on the car ride home.
Yeah. I was still on Rock side at that point, and I was like, this doesn't seem that good. But
I believe Rockseye's running Grim Tutor right now, if I recall correctly.
I mean, in 3
I
cards,
mean,
it
yeah.
makes more sense because you're
makes
limited
sense.
in the card choices.
you're on every tutor, right? You're on Diabolic.
That's not true.
Run
You're not on
Grasp.
Merchant Scroll. You're not on fucking,
solve the equation. Come on, you're
Yeah.
not on.
Oh yeah, my bad. Yeah, we're not on the 4 mana one either. Yeah, oops.
What's the one that Crick does where it's like it's like a bunch of black pips, but like you just get to cast it for free.
Beseech the Queen.
right? Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, we're not on
so-
Dark Petition either.
yeah.
That's
That
a
was
blast from the
atrocious.
past. That's a blast from the past right there.
I think the last question that we have before we wrap it up is like these upcoming tournaments. You guys have heard all about it. We have chaos events, we have eminence events, we might have monarch events. So there's like a lot of things that are coming in the works. You have Mox Masters, playing with Power Leagues, all these different things that you see. What are you guys the most excited for 2023 in the tournament scene for CEDH?
You want to say it at the same time, Alex? Or
I'm excited
mean-
for Silicon Dynasty.
yeah,
It's
I mean,
just
there's
about to happen
Silicon.
for me.
I'm
And-
excited for Eminence
Punt
events in
City.
general.
Oh yeah, they're the best. They're the best tournaments.
Eminence runs the best tournaments. As someone who's been to Monarch and Eminence, no slight to Monarch, but Eminence events are very well run. They run very smoothly. Really professional team. No complaints.
They let me bring food and drink inside.
They're nice to me.
They're
Some-
nice.
actually-
They're nice to my friend Rocketman. When we're not calling him short, we're nice to him.
Yeah, he's not bad for a 13-year-old.
Yeah, I'm 5'3", so watch out for me.
Yeah, you and Adam just.
I may try
we
to
have
steal your
look down to
phone.
see you.
Yeah,
Ankle biters.
that's funny.
Both of you.
It's nice that,
Exactly.
It's nice that I don't have to like shill Eminence stuff, right? You guys just get to talk. It's
No, we
crazy.
do it for you, right?
Yeah, even
I
though I
mean,
work for them,
Eminence
you-
is having. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was
No,
gonna
it's
say Eminence
okay.
is like
I'm
having the
used to it.
first like. They're having like the first like CDH like real circuit, right? Because
Yeah.
there's Silicon Dynasty, and then there's Punt City 2, and then there's a Cookout, and then there's Windmill Slam, and then they're having the Nationals, right? So it's like really the first circuit you're seeing. Like there's been like one-off events like Marchesa and Oko, Oktoberfest, and even pre-pandemic there was DDM with Mike Bonney, but Mike Bonney's back with Mikey and Zane, and they're setting up a whole slew of events, and I'm really excited because you're seeing a lot of people show up to these events that they're like way bigger than CDH. Like I'm excited to see guys like Matt Sperling compete in events because that's a very, very good Magic player who is picking up my format and is saying this is a cool format. Number one, that's validation, and number two, that's more eyes looking at the format, which is amazing for growth. You're seeing like content creators like Koval won Oktoberfest, like Brian Cook, like really helped pioneer a new deck. Like it's really cool to see people completely out of the EDH space step into CEDH and be like, number one, this format's awesome, and push it. And it's going to be awesome to see these people compete in events in 2023. It's going to be a real test. I think people are going to learn that being a really good Magic player, it makes you broken in cEDH. I know that's like a scorching hot take. I know, right? But getting better at 60-card Magic helps you get better at cEDH, in my opinion. Another scorching hot take. Some people would disagree with that. I think like picking up another 60-card format would actually help you get a lot better cEDH, but that's another thing. But I'm just really excited to see all these new faces and old faces from like former like Pro Tours come and compete and do well, because I think that's awesome for cEDH, right? That's a great way to get people better, and it's going to help a meta form even more, and it's going to make events more competitive, and it's going to make events more fun. So that's how I feel. How do you feel, Alex?
I'm extremely excited for the entire circuit. I will be hopefully going to most of them. Definitely the cookout, because it's 5 hours down the road.
I want to go to Waffle House. That's why I'm going to the cookout.
I'm going to go to Waffle House with Hal and Manny, and that
right.
is still my goal. The goat. I'm excited for all the events this year. I'm also extremely excited, like you said, for Matt Sperling, Bryant Cook, Brian Koval, especially Matt Sperling, because he's just been a great person to talk to about the format and talk to about deck choices and play with. It's been a treat recently with him. He even picked up my deck recently and was like talking to me about the things he did it differently, and it's been great. Yeah, it's just an exciting year.
Couldn't agree more.
Sweet. And for me and Cian, I think we're just excited to get out to whatever events we can. I know that I'll be at every Eminence event throughout the year. Me and Cian are planning on going to Punt City too, so we're excited for that. We want to. We're probably going to Nationals too, because that's in our backyard. So we're going to be going to that, and so we're just excited to like be more a part of the community, competing more. Putting up results. I'm turning the 03 into the 3-0 this year, so keep an eye out for that. And
I'll start at 1-2.
Let's start at 1-2.
You know what, Adam? Adam, besides the hate, I believe you can make top 64.
Top 64, that's the goal. I've only made top 64 like every event except for one so far, but that's okay.
Adam, what are you talking about?
Every event,
you're gonna win
bro.
A tournament. You get one tournament away from top 16ing a tournament.
I believe Adam.
One more tournament away. Anyways, screw you guys. Let's end this episode.
Screw you guys. I'm going home.
Yeah. So, and now to move to our end step. So again, we're gonna thank all of our high tier patrons.
You said a stop.
Thank you to Dude, Usable Object, Senator Tom, Scorish, Jeff Bezos, Unorthodox Bird, Domino, Geos Justin, and Just Ice. Thank you guys for the support. The support from our patrons is what makes us here at Sad Naus continue to be able to pump out this content, buy new equipment, buy new gear, have amateur guests on like Kris and Alex, and bring on as many people as possible. Oh, nice microphone, buddy. You think you're cool? Because I got the same one.
Yeah, same one. I know.
But yeah, if you'd like to support us on Patreon, you can do so at patreon.com/sadnaus. Both Kris and Alex are patrons of ours. That's why we put them on this episode, because they gave us money. No, that's not.
That's not the reason.
But if you haven't already joined the Discord,
all right, Adam. No. I'm taking over this side. I've been taking it over. All right. Yeah. Yada yada yada. Join the Discord. Yeah, we've been saying it. All right. Well, here's a curveball for you. Sub to us on YouTube, all right? Screw the Discord. I don't give a fuck anymore. Fuck the Discord. Sub to us on YouTube. We need that clout, baby. Vroom, we need clout. All right, listen, but jokes aside, Discord, it's a great place. Everybody has Discord. All right, you got TikToks. Fuck a TikTok. Join the Sad Naus Discord. Links are going to be below in our YouTube. And it came to our attention today, actually, that we don't have a Discord link in our Spotify. So we'll make sure to put that in there as well. We're local to the Milwaukee metro area, and we have channels specifically for local discussion, tournaments, and meetups. We got Hampter. We got fucking Vroom, baby. The prophecy of Vroom. That's all you need to know. Bada bing, bada boom. Sub to us on YouTube, join the Discord. Adam, back to you.
Dude, you just like speak in tongues sometimes. You're like, fucking fuck the TikTok, fuck the fucking
fuck the TikTok. I got Kris here. He's from Philly. I got to do a little,
fuck the TikTok.
Fuck the TikTok,
Where are the YouTube Shorts coming at?
Yo, listen,
Hey,
they're
there's
coming.
one on
All
there.
right,
We got one on there.
I got wish you Merry Christmas. I got to finish editing one I recorded. But
It's so funny, dude. It's like wish you. It's like, hey guys, hope you have a Merry Christmas. And then it ends. I'm like, what the heck?
You should do one that's just a compilation of Adam getting roasted.
Oh, yeah,
that would not be a YouTube short. That would be like a 10-hour YouTube video.
Anyways, if you're listening,
we need
on
subs
YouTube,
so we can get
Spotify,
monetized for it.
or Apple Podcast or anywhere else, make sure you leave a like and subscribe. Leave a comment, drop us a review, and share us with your friends. By the way, please leave us a review. The reviews are huge. I just checked Spotify. We have like, I think 45-star reviews on Spotify. We have a perfect record. So
Holy
like,
shit.
drop us those reviews. Yeah.
Should
We're,
I
like,
change
one
that?
of the- No, don't change that.
No.
Please. We're one of the highest rating gaming podcasts on the platform. So like, thank you so much. That really means a lot. And I'm glad that you guys have been doing that.
Yeah, it does.
It gives us the ability to reach new people, contact new audiences, and just continue to make sick videos. So we appreciate that. And with that, we're going to end the episode here. So you guys have a great week, and we'll see you on the next one.